Calico Jack, Captain Kidd, Henry Morgan, and Charles Vane. These are just a handful of pirates during the 1650s to 1720s, known as the Golden Age of piracy. But there's one pirate who stands out uniquely from the rest. History, mixed with folklore, tells us he was tall and mean, that he drank gunpowder mixed with his rum, and he had a pact with the devil. Yet he was said to be a lady charmer, with 14 wives. He wore burning rope matches in his hair just to bewilder his enemies, and ribbons tied to the braids of his long beard. His name was said to be Edward Teach, but in 1718 he would be forever known as Blackbeard the Pirate. In honor of my favorite of social outcasts, I traveled to the Outer Banks of North Carolina to visit the haunts of Blackbeard on the anniversary of his last battle. This first took me to the quaint sailing town of Oriental, and it is here that local legend says Blackbeard buried his treasure underneath the giant old oak tree at Dewey Point and promised a beautiful red-headed lass who swept his heart that he would return for both her and his treasure. Yet he never did. The tree, called Teach's Oak by the townsfolk, stood until 1955 when a hurricane wind uprooted it. So, with the help of Oriental's History Museum and Ken Midget, known to all as Turtle, we went to town hall and got a metal detector and a shovel, and we spent a day searching and digging for Blackbeard's buried treasure. Growing up here as a kid, did you ever have any? What was your, feelings on Blackbeard?
He was a local hero, without question, and I'm not sure why now as an adult that, we would all find pillaging and being a bad person as romantic and, somebody you would consider to be a hero. But, he certainly was revered and talked about and bragged on. My guess is the oak tree that we called Teach's Oak was a big oak tree, based on the root system I saw that happened to be out here on this point. I mean, if you're looking for a place to hide something, this would be easy to get to and would be easy to find again. So, maybe. Might have something there. Huh. Might not have something there.
With the help of Robert Fears and his underwater detector, we scoured the water of the point where the oak tree fell. Gold coins and ancient sacks of rubies filled our minds. Dreams of paying off credit card debts and quitting our jobs in style filled our imaginations.
Oh, that's a great scoop.
At many times, I thought we hit jackpot.
Feel around in there again. I don't know what that is.
Jeff, we found something.
Upon arriving Ocracoke Island, Blackbeard's favorite stomping grounds, I came upon over 50 pirate reenactors and Blackbeard historian Kevin Duffus. The pirates march from Blackbeard's lodge through the small town to a trail through an old oak forest out to Springer's Point, which overlooks Teach's Hole, the spot that Blackbeard was said to have anchored his ship, and where held his final battle on the morning of November 22nd, 1718.
Ahoy to you all, and greetings to our brethren of the coast and pirates from across the seas. And a hearty welcome to all of you civil men, women, scallywags, and guests, and a wary nod to those of you who foolishly admit to being in service of the king or his governors, their minions and spies.
History and fiction have swirled themselves together. It wasn't exactly plunder season for Blackbeard, and no one really knows why he was still loafing around in the wintertime, so he was a little short-staffed on his pirate crew when Lieutenant Maynard's ships arrived to capture him. Lieutenant Maynard of the Royal Navy was sent by Governor Spotswood of Virginia to capture Blackbeard the pirate. As the old story goes, Blackbeard gave Maynard a broadside of cannon fire and boarded his ship, when to his surprise, Maynard's hidden men jumped up from below the decks, catching Blackbeard off guard. Despite the 5 gunshot wounds and over 20 sword wounds, Blackbeard would not fall, till he was the last of his crew, still staggering and fighting, sword against sword to Lieutenant Maynard, till one of Maynard's men attacked Blackbeard from behind and got the best of him. It is here that Blackbeard becomes more than just a man. For to make sure he was dead, Maynard ordered Blackbeard's head removed and to be taken back as a trophy. But when they threw the body overboard, it was said to have swam around the ship several times, and you can see on certain eerie nights a circling glow underneath the water there, where his ghost still swims searching for his head. And as for his head, it was said to have been plated in silver and written inside a curse to the Governor Spotswood of Virginia, who ordered his capture. I was lucky enough to meet Philip Howard, who collects island stories and lore. He is a long descendant of William Howard, who was Blackbeard's quartermaster.
You know, relatives today who don't want to say that our relatives were pirates, and they may not have been, but I think the evidence is beginning to be clear. Kevin Duffus, who wrote that recent book, Blackbeard, The Last Days of Blackbeard the Pirate, is convinced that William Howard the Pirate was the same as my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather.
And he was, how old was he when he joined the crew, and how many years?
The best we know, he was 18 years old when he was quartermaster with Blackbeard. He was captured in the spring of 1718 and put in jail in Williamsburg, Virginia. And he was in jail when Blackbeard was killed here at Ocracoke, November 22nd, 1718. And he was still in jail, if I'm not mistaken, in December of 1718, sentenced to be hanged. And the day before his execution, the Act of Grace, or the King's Pardon, was received in the colony, and he was released from jail. So if the Act of Grace had been received a day later, you wouldn't be able to talk to me today.
Kevin Duffus, whose book, The Last Days of Blackbeard the Pirate, has opened up many new theories about the real Blackbeard, who he truly was, where he was from, and why he might have become a pirate.
Why was Blackbeard lingering, at Ocracoke at the end of November when the weather records indicated that it was, freezing cold and there were storms, gales, nor'easters blowing? Why was this pirate who, they all enjoyed the warm weather of the West Indies that time of year? Why was he lingering here for so long and so late in the season? And when Blackbeard surrendered to the governor of North Carolina, he had to bypass 4 other colonial governors to get to Governor Eden. He could have surrendered to any one of them, yet he chose to almost risk his life to get to North Carolina. So what was the connection? And again, history has never been able to explain some of these questions. There's some historians who say, well, you can't say those things. But to advance history, sometimes you have to take a leap. You have to take a risk. You have to say, well, the traditional story doesn't really make sense.
I spent that night with Blackbeard's crew, a non-profit group of pirate reenactors that teach authentic pirate history, and I asked them many questions over sea shanties and rum back at Blackbeard's lodge.
My name's Rusty O'Toole from Blackbeard's crew out of Hampton, Virginia.
Rusty, how long you been a pirate?
For 3 years now.
Why?
When I was a wee lad, Ben Cherry, who plays Blackbeard, went into my elementary school. He came, he would shoot his guns and tell stories of Blackbeard. That's when I became hooked on local history and pirate history. He's a part of our history that we just can't ignore. North Carolina wouldn't be North Carolina the way it is without Blackbeard and that part of our history. He was more of a Robin Hood, take from the rich, give to the poor.
I get a chance to take what I've got in my heart, what I've got in my head, and I can teach somebody something about the history ugly or not. This is how this country came about, mates. You take what pirates did. Pirates sold to the lowest of the low. They kept the low man going. Pirate fed the poor man. Pirate fed the merchant that was barely scraping by. Because the governor had taxes. Governor's taxes had to be paid. Unless you're buying from a pirate, that is. My job amongst all this lot here, I keep them fed, I'm the cook.
And then I met Captain Pern.
So I spent 3 years trying to become a member of this crew. That's how long it took me to become a member. 1 month after I became a member, I became the press gang master, the first press gang master of the crew. At that time, there were only 9 members of the crew. Now we have 37. This year we had 26 events, which is the largest number of events that we've had since our inception. Our goal is to educate the public on what life was like as a pirate or a sailor in 1718. And we strive very hard to make sure that the historical accuracy is there. That's what's important to us. We like to have a good time doing it and have fun at it because that's what it's all about, but the public benefits by us sharing that information, and all of us focus. All the members of the crew are professionals in their real life, and so they're all very intelligent people, and they've had the opportunity, and they have the passion, and understand Edward Teach and Blackbeard. And so we try to learn and interpret that information and live that life so that when we're portraying it to the public, they feel like we're capturing their imagination, and it feels like they're walking into the year 1718 when they're dealing with us.
If you could go back in time, would that be the year you would want to live?
I think I've lived in that time.
And in the witching hour of the night, with a few of my adventurous new pirate friends, we went back to Stringer's Point and sat on the beach under the stars and waited in hopes to see the glowing headless ghost of Blackbeard. Pat Mansfield, head of the Blackbeard Adventure Alliance, sums up what Blackbeard has become.
No one's person and reinterpretation can ever equate what we all think individually, Blackbeard, who he was and who he remains. And so to me, he stays as a legend and is forever ageless, timeless, and he can only get better, bigger.
So tonight, brew up some warm grog, chop up some anchovies, mangoes, smoked meat, and a hard-boiled egg, and throw them together and have some salmagundi for dinner, in honor the most colorful pirate that ever sailed underneath the black flag, Blackbeard. Yar-har!